Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Kingdom Says Podcast. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams, and joining me today are my two usual co-hosts. We've got Kyle Henning. Kyle, how are you doing today, sir?
It's been a hectic Thursday. I'm ready to get to Friday because that means it's Red Friday, which means championship game, AFC Sunday. I hate that we have to wait till freaking 5:20, but we're playing in it. The Arrowhead Invitational is back on for the 5th year in a row. That's never ever been done, so that's a good feeling. And then I think we just heard a halftime entertainment announcement that's going to get everybody to lean back in their chairs a little bit, so that should be interesting. But we have a good show tonight because we're going to recap everything, so I'm happy, ready to talk to y'all. It's been a long week. I've been chomping at the bit. We've run into some issues not getting this earlier, but we're here now, so let's get it rolling.
Yes, sir. Of course, is joining us as well, Arrowhead Tom. Tom, how are you feeling tonight?
Gosh, Kyle said, "Oh, it's a good Thursday." I'm like, "Oh, it is Thursday. This week has flown by."
I have no idea. Thursday.
Yeah, no, it's flown by, and we are, on the backside. I'm also Senior Bowl prepping, and it's a busy season in the
time of the
football
year.
World for yours truly, and I think all of us. Just busy time of year, anyways, but. I tell you what, the Chiefs are in the AFC Championship, as Kyle said, for a 5th straight year. And I think if we've talked a lot about setting expectations, and I'll just say this. I think it's safe to say that the Chiefs have already exceeded expectations. I don't think any of us predicted a potential Super Bowl run this season. We all thought it was going to be a rebuilding.
I don't think so.
I think that's an important thing to consider as we go about this next week or so of Chiefs football.
I mean, yeah, I can honestly say preseason, during the season, many times during the season, I would not have predicted the Chiefs being in this position.
I can't say that I necessarily predicted it, but I may or may not have put some sort of wager on them doing the said thing that we were just discussing.
With the
when
odds
Kansas legalized. When Kansas legalized the events, so I did that, but I won't say that I necessarily expected it, but the odds made sense, so I made the decision.
A lot of faith in it.
I think we predicted juiced. I think we predicted them at least. I think we all had them winning the AFC West with a decent record, but that was about it. I don't think and we basically said as deep as they go in the playoffs is a gift this year with what they've got. They're on the verge. They're hosting. We definitely didn't predict the 1 seed because we said that was probably not going to be as attainable this year with schedules and everything else. Well, they did that.
Here we are. And now look at that. We won a playoff game. Who would have thunk it, Look at us.
Yeah.
Now we're
going to break it down.
We're going to again and hosting it again against the same team again. So
we got a lot to break down in this one. Obviously, this is going to be a pretty jam-packed episode. We're going to get through it pretty quick here. Jaguars game, obviously, divisional round at Arrowhead.
It was so nice to start off so well.
It was such a nice start. I almost thought for a second, it would be a stress-free Sunday. I almost thought that.
We were this close. He was going to go fire-breathing dragon all over the Jaguars. We were this close.
One day, guys. Yeah. One day we'll get it.
One day, but as Chiefs fans know all too well, it's never going to be like that. Something had to go wrong, and of course, what was it? Through the second quarter, I guess it happened. Mahomes, after, like Kyle said, just lighting guys up in the first couple drives that he had, just on his way to one of the better performances that we've seen from him of recent. And he gets rolled up on. Weird kind of tackle after the.
And man, did it not look good.
It did not look good.
It was a very bad look.
They rolled all the way up, like 2/3 of the way up his leg. They were up his calf.
Approaching knee territory is what was bending.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It should have been a horse collar. He had his hand on the nameplate and pulled him down by his neck backwards and sat on his legs. That's a horse collar.
Yeah, it was a rough play.
It was a rough play for sure, and immediately obviously you can tell
according
that
to Pat McAfee, they're teaching that tackle in D locker rooms. That's some nasty stuff, man. Dropping on guys' legs like that is dangerous.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that. So
Yeah, so obviously that was kind of the biggest highlight or low light, I guess you could say, of the game. The biggest kind of talking point there. Obviously, he finishes that drive, just obviously very hobbled. Goes
And
to the
angry.
sideline, yeah, very
And
angry,
angry.
very upset. Obviously, attention, all that stuff. They're retaping his leg. Basically, I forgot, but like after that it happened, they kind of called a timeout and they just went over and taped his ankle up real quick. There's like, all right, tape it up, put him back in.
Something happened right after he got banged up, and I don't remember what
Yeah,
it was.
I want to say there was like some kind of review or
yeah,
something.
I think it was the end of the quarter, or maybe it was the 2 minute. It was a 2 minute warning. It was the 2 minute warning.
Yeah,
because they ran 2 plays and then it was the 2 minute warning, and that's where they really taped him up. Because he was hopping on the 1 foot, and then
when he did the handoff to McKinnon on the outside zone handoff, I'm like, outside zone when he can't walk is not necessarily what I mean. I guess he can jump.
No, it was
not the smartest of plays. But yeah, if you didn't see the sideline footage of how it kind of all went down, they were showing it a lot on the broadcast, and then they released the mic'd up kind of section of it.
It was tough to watch.
Yeah.
Most of the sideline footage they've been showing after that they've been loving to replay is what took place after that drive ended and what led to him being sent to the locker room. And I say sent because there is an audio clip of him with Andy going, no, way, no. And he's almost in tears.
I'll do it at halftime. Yeah.
So he's like,
Andy
I'm not going.
Ultimately said that,
the coach.
Yeah. Sometimes coaches have to be in the unenviable.
Lose it like that.
Yeah. Well, coaches sometimes have to be in the tough position to protect players from themselves, and
exactly.
As hard as that was, as big as that game is, it's the right call for Pat, right? You know.
Yeah. Shout out to Andy for putting his foot down and saying like, "Hey, we're not putting you back in unless you go get a negative test real quick."
Hey,
like
his audio was just as good. Well, you might as well go get an X-ray because I'm not putting you back in the game until you do.
So
yeah. Well, and
luckily,
that's a huge deal because if you've got a broken. If there's a bone that's broken and it's moving around in there, you're going to
need the Kevin Ware injury from Louisville in like 2009 when his leg popped out of his leg or when his bone popped out of his leg because he was playing on a hairline fracture. We don't need that.
Yeah,
that's nasty.
Yeah, so even if it stays intact, whatever, just that moving around, the damage it does to the tissue internally is long term is not good for Pat's career. So
yeah,
protect the franchise.
Exactly, and luckily for the offense, in Pat's absence, Chad Henne, the man of the year, anything is possible with Chad Henne.
Pinned in his own, takes the first snap with his feet in the paint of his own end zone because the ball gets dropped at the 2.
Like I said, Chad Henne revenge game. That's what it was.
It really was, yeah. So he drives down 98-yard touchdown drive. Ended off with a pass to Travis Kelce. Really like a beautiful drive from a guy. And I was texting my family and telling my family like live, like I have full confidence in Chad Henne when he comes into the game. Obviously he's not talented as Patrick Mahomes, but he's known that system for years. He's been in those situations. Like dude is just a master at his craft of and he's prepared. Like he prepares every week probably. Like he's coming in the game eventually. So it's like. Yeah,
he's a veteran.
Full confidence when Chad Henne goes in there.
Yeah, and he's been in the system
for a long time.
And Andy Reid, I saw a meme. It was a picture of Mahomes going down, and then it was a picture of a dusty book, and it said Alex Smith playbook, and it was Andy Reid dusting it off.
That's what you can do. Like he knows, like you have that playbook in Andy's pocket that you can just dial up easy plays.
Cheesecake Factory menu full of plays to pull out of.
Well, and I also want to give a shout out to Isaiah Pacheco. I know that's my guy, but he had that big run,
the jersey's on the way,
and he really did. The running backs I think responded to that challenge too. Because that's one of the hardest situations to be in because everybody in that stadium knows you're running the ball.
Yeah,
everybody. There's not a person who's going to go. You know what? I bet they go shotgun and drop Chad Henne 7 yards deep in his own end zone. No, they're running that ball.
They get to 3rd and short or 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 4, and they're like, oh, we're going to run it again. And Chad is literally carving people up over the middle and down the side. Like, Good luck.
Yeah,
he can destroy you too.
They hit
Did you
the
guys-
Tyreek.
Yeah, the Tyreek.
Yeah, they did the
sprint
Tyreek
out.
Browns play. Yeah, the sprint out to right
Mhm.
with Kadarius Toney on the receiving end of that, I
The
believe.
sprint out flare. Yep.
So
Good
it was a
play.
masterclass. And then obviously the end of the
You
quarter
said Kelsey,
comes.
right?
Yeah.
Kelsey.
And guess what Kelsey did after he scored that touchdown to cap the drive? He threw Chad Henne's first touchdown pass in the playoffs about 45 rows into the stands. And
sorry, Chad.
So he put out a little PSA on the podcast over at New Heights, which if you haven't checked that podcast out yet for some magical way you haven't, you should probably do
Best
that.
podcast out there right now.
And also watch like every episode from the beginning because it doesn't matter. You can fast forward through the football parts that they're discussing in the games if you want, although their insight is really good. It's excellent. So put a PSA out. They apparently have located the individual who's found the ball, who has the ball. So they're going to try and organize that to get that back. We'll see how that plays
shout
out.
out Chad Henne.
Chad
Henne and Travis Kelce made that
Where
drive.
do we even start
Checo.
other than him launching the touchdown pass?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
he had
and then
14
obviously,
catches.
yeah, huge game from Travis Kelce, which always happens. Like if you look at his playoff stat numbers, there's a tweet going around with I mean, just crazy numbers, like basically 100 yards a game every single time.
Yeah. Anytime you catch Jerry Rice in anything, you know what kind of company you're in.
He's that 14 catch performance was third most all time in a playoff game.
Like that's not usual, people. That's
the
not
other
normal.
Two are running.
It's not
backs.
Easy. It's not.
The
it's
other
not
two
an easy
were running
feat.
backs. Darren Sproles and James White had more with 15.
Yeah.
The more you learn.
Travis Kelce, I mean, playoff guy. If you're talking about a guy who shows up for the playoffs, yeah. But if you're talking about a guy who shows up for the playoffs, Travis Kelce, he shows up every time, and that's going to go into a little bit of our Bengals talk about how you can stop Travis Kelce. Which, spoiler alert, you really can't.
Good luck.
But obviously, the rest of the offense after the halftime, Mahomes comes back, looks hobbled still a little bit. I mean, not as bad. He wasn't. The problem was that he wasn't getting better throughout the game, which kind of was an indicator of like
he took off. He ran after that.
If you want to describe that as a run, yeah. If you want to describe that, yeah.
More so than what I expected him to be able. I would have been laying
a lot more than that is true. That is a lot more than what you'd think that he would do.
Yeah.
But you know, they had a couple more outside zones that looked rough. Ultimately, though, he still. I mean, he went out there. He got a touchdown, right? He.
Yeah.
Everybody.
He had that jump pass.
Offensive line kept
right.
clean.
He had the jump pass touchdown. Yeah, like.
Well, he went off the left foot.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
No, but I think that there's a spirit about that and I think Travis was talking about it, or I'm sorry, no, it was Frank Clark. I take it back. It was Frank Clark after the game. They're talking about what does it mean to see your guy Patrick Mahomes come back in and how that inspires other dudes. Like it's like because I mean. If you're an athlete, a high ankle sprain is a pretty common injury.
No.
What was that? Like it's a common injury.
Know what that injury means?
Yeah,
they know
how
know
what
nasty
it is.
That injury is.
Yep. And to see him gut that out, that's just one of those all right, he's all in. We got to be all in. And I think that you really saw that just as a team effort in the second half. Just playing complementary football. Special teams probably got let off the hook a little bit because they let up some big runs but Harrison Butker made a big
keep killing Harrison Butker.
Shout out
folks.
Harrison Butker.
He just keeps saving your butt when it matters.
Keep
killing Harrison Butker, everybody.
So yeah, that was a big one. But it's hard to watch somebody who's your teammate go through that, but also to see them gut it out and just we talked about guys stepping up, and I'll and showing up in the playoffs. And we also, I think, need to acknowledge Frank Clark. He's up there in all-time sacks with playoffs. And you guys know I'm not the biggest Frank Clark fan, but I'm like, man, maybe we need to keep him around just for a little bit longer, just for the playoffs.
Maybe.
Let him put him on that Melvin Ingram snap count. And
hey, Frank Clark, you can sit out the first couple months of the season.
Yeah, Frank, you don't even need to come. Yeah, you just hang out. Come
you can show up. You can get a couple snaps a game.
Food, hang out for a little bit.
You guys got to remember, he's also valuable for what he does in the locker room and his leadership.
Yeah.
That dude is still the leader of that defense.
Yeah, I think I got to give him some flowers for
Got to give Frank Clark
stepping up in the playoffs.
Shows up in the playoffs every
as
single
much
year.
as I give him crap during the regular season, he's there. He's there cleaning up, and he finishes.
He sure knows a good time to show up.
And I know we've got a couple other guys on defense who we got to shout out.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna steal this one just because I want to, just because just similar to how he stole the pass to steal that game. Jalen Watson, that one-handed interception. That was. I remember I turned to my friend who was watching the game with. I went, that felt sexual. Like it was beautiful.
That was beautiful.
That's the broken one-handed interception.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, that was yeah. That like I said, that felt. It was beautiful, and
we shared that.
Watson has had.
In case you guys everybody missed that, he broke his hand.
Yeah, 7th round draft pick.
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen,
love to see rookies stepping up left and right. We'll talk about another rookie here in a second, but
yeah,
really,
Watson now has 2 of the most important snaps on the defense all year.
He has 2 game-changing interceptions, that's for sure. So that's
ceiling
shout out to him.
Ceiling interceptions, both of them ended the game.
Yeah. So really, the defense. I mean, obviously, with losing your quarterback to an injury like that, like you have to step up and show up. And the defense took control of that game, definitely. Like you said, Frank Clark after the game said that they just had to. You have that mindset, like it's up to us that we gotta put the foot down and really stand our ground. And obviously, a guy who stood his ground phenomenally, Chris Jones, was despite not having a playoff sack yet, which is crazy, crazy stat. He got really close, but he was living in the backfield regardless of what the stats say. Another monster game from him. I mean, the whole D-line was definitely getting to Trevor Lawrence, putting on the pressure, which something that you haven't seen a lot during the regular season. We actually saw some good pressure coming in. I want to say
we talked about this before the show though. They had 55 sacks the regular season, so say what you want.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it is. That's the funny thing. I think I saw another stat about the pass rush or something about how the Chiefs were like the second in pass rush or something win rate, right behind the Bengals for the divisional round.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was a playoff.
Yeah,
I think their pass rush improved as the season went on, and so
yeah.
And we'll talk about that here in a minute with the Bengals. Like I think everyone's talking about the Bengals, and this is a different team that the Bengals saw in Week 10, and I don't know if they are. It's a different defense than what the Bengals saw in Week 10. I'll say it that way, but we're not going to get into that just yet.
So my thing and just to wrap on those 3 guys, because Frank has been my guy. I've heard me talk about Frank. He's now doing exactly what I expected him to do in this playoffs. If he could manage to get himself healthy, it looks like the body has worked and responded to the stuff he changed in the offseason for the most part. It's not bothering him as much. He looks healthier. He looks more to his normal playing weight. All those are good signs. I've said it I told you everybody last year he was going to get restructured this year and still be here when everybody told me he was going to get cut. He's here. I told you guys this year he's going to get offered the Sammy Watkins comeback if you want it. Carlos Dunlap-sized contract for next year. He will probably be here next year if they offer him that. He loves Kansas City. So whatever you guys want to say, the dude's the leader of that defense from a production, like leadership perspective, from a talkative perspective, from being that guy in the room right now. He's still that dude for them. And
he is that leader
when it comes to teaching those rookies and Karlaftis developing and all this, they got a new D-line coach this year. Joe Cullen is very good at what he does, but it took him some weeks to get them going and get them together with all the things that they've probably changed. We talked about this team being a retooling year. The defense was the tool that they needed to retool the most. That's what they did, and we just talked about Frank, who was a problem, Jalen Watson, who's a 7th round draft pick that I was told Brett Veach doesn't know how to draft and should be gone, like not even 10 weeks ago by people in this fan base. Chris Jones, who some people think should be traded and still be traded, which blows my mind. They need to extend him and make that contract fatter and keep him through his prime. And the last guy is the guy I want to talk about most because he's the guy that's playing, I think, probably the most important role and may play the most important role going forward because he may be a replacement for a free agent we signed this offseason going forward. Brian Cook has been excellent as of late in the role that they've put him in. He is making tackles in the box. They are rotating him as a safety from deep to forward. Nate Christensen posted a play, I believe that's who it was. of him in the divisional game making an unbelievable rotation on a disguised package, fills the hole from basically Juan's deep safety position on a rotation and makes the tackle 2 yards behind or up in front of the line of scrimmage when he was 15 to 25 yards off the ball when he took off on the play snap. After diagnosing and avoiding blocks, he's been excellent.
He has really progressed pretty well, especially in coverage, but just as, again, this is a guy who they had veterans on this team who they were like, okay, we're probably not going to be able to count on this rookie in the secondary. And here's Brian Cook getting those third safety snaps, which is a significant amount of snaps in this defense. So
has
Flowers,
anybody
Brian Cook for
Deion Bush is no longer anything but special teams. Haven't seen him in a long time.
Yeah,
also,
Deion
Brian
Bush
Cook is starting to take some of the third linebacker snaps. When Chenal's off the field and Darius Harris is off the field, Spags is playing more of that 3 safety coverage with the 2 linebackers and rolling it. And Willie's getting pulled off the field still.
Brian Cook has put Deion Bush on a milk carton. We haven't seen him in weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with all that being said, Jaguars game, overall success. I think after Mahomes came back, it was pretty apparent that we were going to be fine and it was going to be okay. Wasn't too stressful after that, but defense did their part. Offense, obviously, going forward. We're going to see how they look like going into the AFC Championship here at Arrowhead. Rematch of last year, obviously, versus the Bengals. The infamous
Here's the recap
game.
of the Bengals build. It was bad.
Yeah, the Bills are in a rough spot right now.
Out of gas, man. That is a team that was out of gas and out of players to put on the field.
Yeah, and the Bengals, they're shout out to them for just kind of going through all the adversity and all the coin flips and all the
before all that craziness happened in the regular season
exactly,
game.
Yeah,
that's what they were
had
on
to
track to
circumnavigate the coin flips and all the home field advantage stuff and all that, and then here they are back in the AFC Championship game. So obviously, not a small feat. They're very deserving of being here, as I think the Chiefs are, and it should be a really good game.
This is the matchup we wanted all year.
Yeah.
If you're honest with yourself, this is the team I wanted to play because we've seen 3 straight, and last year's mess in the AFC Championship game, that second half. This is what you wanted. This is what the players wanted. They've told you. They circled Cincinnati. They know.
This is one of those situations, I think, where it's if you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. Like and the Bengals rightfully are, I think, the other best team in the AFC. So like if we want to get to the Super Bowl, yeah, like if we want to get to the Super Bowl, we have to quell this demon. We have to conquer this battle that we have here.
I mean, we pretty much expected these to be the 2 teams at the end if all went according to plan.
Pretty much,
Chiefs went best case scenario, if Chiefs went full best case scenario, this is what we expected. And as the season progressed and we saw what they were doing and the record they were putting up, this is what we wanted. This is what we kind of expected as we came down the stretch. So here we are. The only thing we didn't really factor in is the fact that Mahomes might be dealing with an ankle injury, which I say might because since he got rolled up on and they went and taped him up and I would assume gave him a nice dose of the T medicine, in the hall, and if you guys don't know, that's Toradol. It's a nice little painkiller shot. It does wonders. And basically, from then on, like Andy called it an ankle tweak in the post-game presser.
Yeah, he walked out of the stadium in normal shoes.
Okay, so as soon as everybody saw the ankle, we knew what was coming because we've seen this before. Remember when Brady messed his ankle up, high ankle sprain before the Bears Super Bowl, and we had 2.5 weeks of Brady watch? Remember that? Yeah. So we've done this before. We knew what was coming. So he didn't have a boot Sunday night when he left the locker room. He was walking normal per Nate Taylor in the Athletics. Wonderful information he gave on the first episode of Times Ours this week. Appreciate them being back in the locker room, by the way, guys. If you guys don't remember, we didn't get stories or information like this during the COVID years. We are desperately happy to have them back in the locker room. Then we go to the presser we go to Andy's comments on Monday, where he basically said, yeah, it's better than we thought it was going to be, and he's doing pretty well. And then Tuesday, it's even better than we thought it was going to be Tuesday than we thought it was going to be Monday. The progression's insane. And then Wednesday, he's a full freaking participant, and he's doing one-leg kick-ups on that ankle. And now we've made it to Thursday. He's been a full participant 2 days in a row. He's jogging. We're not walking funny. We've been videotaping him walking in out of press conferences. There's no funkiness in it. He light stepped coming down off the stage, but as Pat McAfee broke down on his show, and the first thing when I saw it was he's hesitant because he's expecting to have it hurt, and it's not necessarily there. Or is it? Or what is it?
Patrick Mahomes, good at football, also really good at healing, apparently. His body just...
Well, that's the thing.
This is why
that is
I want to diagram all that out.
That is its
Bobby
own thing.
And Rick deserve a heck of a lot of credit for what Patrick is able to do from an injury recovery and prevention standpoint. There's a post of that pass that he made to, I think it was Clyde in the end zone in the Bucs game when he's getting ankle folded and he's halfway out of bounds and his knee's been underneath him and everybody's like, how's his leg not like broken? He posted a whole thing about the work that they do in like the gymnastics and the calisthenics and the pliability and the flexibility training that they do.
Well, yeah, because
the dude
Pat has
also is an alien. He has loose ligaments.
Pat has something called like joint pliable mobility or something like that, where it's like your joints. It's like it's kind of a thing where like your joints, like they can kind of just move. They can just bend more. Like
flexible tendons,
exactly,
which is
more
the dumbest
flexible
part of this conversation you will ever hear us talk about, and we've had to do it twice now because we thought he tore his ACL in Denver 2 years ago, and then we just watched one of the probably grosser high ankle sprains and one that took Tony Pollard and broke his friggin' leg in an almost exact same
thing
tackle.
Basically happened.
And he's gonna play Sunday and probably be at worst 80%.
Yeah, it's
built different, man.
It is some alien stuff right there. There were a couple videos I saw. There are a couple videos I saw of him doing some handoffs, like some outside zone handoffs in practice, where you could just tell he just like Kyle said, he's just kind of a little ginger with it still. Yeah, exactly. You're still a little ginger, you know.
And also,
still a little hesitant.
I don't want him hard planting his foot in the ground on Wednesday.
We ain't gotta worry about that. Exactly.
Save all those for Sunday.
Exactly. Just go ahead and get that thing wrapped up for Sunday and go full send. So
I want the Rice method all week. Rest, ice, control, and elevation, baby. Keep it comfortable and ready to go, and keep the swelling down. And let's get to Sunday. And then,
so with that being said,
you got 2 weeks from Sunday. You handle business on the Sunday, which we're getting ready to break down.
We can't look that far in the future though, because we still got a big opponent Sunday here. But with that being said about Pat and the offense, how are we expecting the offense to look? Obviously, I think that's kind of been a topic of conversation where you can kind of go into that Alex Smith side of the playbook a little bit, you know, do more of the pop passes, the jet sweeps, quick little screens and stuff like that, where you're not having to rely on his scrambling. Because the thing about Mahomes that a lot of people forget, not only is he very deadly outside and scrambling from the pocket, but he's also really good inside the pocket. He is a very good pocket passer.
Want to play him out. You still want to play him in the pocket though, if you can.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. That's what I'm saying. That's the goal, is that you want to keep him working in the pocket. You don't have to kind of have these longer developing plays that give him the chance to work outside the pocket like you usually do, where he makes all that magic. We'll just do it inside the pocket. You know, we'll have some jump passes and some no looks.
I think if they run their drop 8 strategy, they're going to get a heavy dose of Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon, and whoever else is playing running back in this game.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And it's hard. Oh, there's Scout. It's hard for Andy to stick to the run sometimes, but he's got to in this game, especially if the safeties are too high and backed up. And I expect them to do that a little bit. So
yeah, it'll be. I'm honestly surprised Tank isn't joining in the symphony here because he can hear him. So
yeah,
but go ahead. Tom.
The running backs. Yeah,
dogs are fine. They're part of the podcast, my guy.
I wrapped up every time I talk. These
dogs are.
Run the ball.
No, the running backs are going to be a huge factor in the game plan. Obviously, getting Pacheco. I think a lot more Pacheco. Yeah, like I think kind of the,
I don't know about
overall.
A lot more. He got some run last week. He put up good numbers.
Yeah, but he didn't get enough. He didn't get enough run. I think for.
I would like a few more touches, unless you're going to split them up amongst the backs, and then we'll see. But and I mean, split them up amongst the backs. I'm mostly talking about Jerick McKinnon because that dude has earned his touches in this offense.
That is the 1-2 punch you want.
I think the other thing you're going to see, because you're talking about some of those longer developing plays, keep an eye on if McCole Hardman is in this game or not.
Yeah, it's a big thing
because
to look at, the injury report
if
that's
he
been coming out.
you may get some Kadarius Toney McCole Hardman double looks or double reverses or some wild different things we haven't seen necessarily that I'm sure Andy's been sitting on for about 10 weeks.
That's a dangerous duo that we have not seen on the field together yet. Or
the
much
other
of.
thing is in the short passing game and in that shorter, quicker windows, trying to attack maybe the middle of the field or do it quicker. Juju and Travis have had more time to work together in those scenarios, and they've already seen a good portion of. Now, the Bengals aren't going to do the same thing twice. That would be stupid. But they're still going to do some similar things that they did in the past, and they've seen it. Your other factor here is MVS, for whatever he's been for most of the year, the last few games, has not been invisible. That's a factor. You have a fully healthy secondary tight end in Blake Bell now. You have Noah Gray, who's been actively producing, and depending on what happens with the monster that is Jody Fortson, the red zone changes a little too, because 6'7" is not that easy to deal with down there if you have Travis and him to have to mess with. It changes some things offensively, and like I said, I think what you're going to notice is a heavier dose of the run game when it needs to be in those drop 3 scenarios, Patrick handing it off more instead of pulling the RPO. And you'll see more of the like sprint out, quick slant out stuff, or Travis and Juju over the middle. And if they drop down and cover on that, that's when you're going to find MVS running somewhere naked down the middle of the field like Sammy Watkins did at one point for us. So,
yeah. And I think the Chiefs are going to scheme this up to – it's hard to keep a quarterback clean a whole game. That would be ideal. And I know they stepped up big time after the game. After the injury in Jacksonville or against Jacksonville, they need to keep that same mentality of nobody hits our guy. And you can move him around as much as you can, roll him out in a way that's safe. But yeah, you got to keep Pat safe and just keep it simple until you have those shots open up downfield, right? Get them to creep up towards the line of scrimmage and then take your shots. Instead of just, trying to bombard them. Like again, Andy and Pat both, know what they're doing, and we'll take those shots when they're there. But it starts with the offensive line keeping Pat as clean as he can. So, and Scout is in agreement with that for sure.
Yeah, and on that exact same topic, and to kind of transition to the next part of it, what the Bengals attempts to do with Travis Kelce will be a fascinating watch, because according to Julian Edelman and his sources, the focus and the whole mantra this week and posted all around the Bengals facility is, did you hit Kelce? Did you tackle Kelce? Did you bump Kelce? Did you touch Kelce? Okay, that's great. So they want to stop the best player at the position that they've ever seen, and they think that's a major impact on the game. Yeah, rocket science. We know. What they try to, and they're likely trying to use the Patriots method, because that's basically the only thing that's even been remotely successful. Great. Again, news to literally nobody. Thank you, Julian. Appreciate that. Travis is about to set some records we talked about earlier. One of the people he's going to pass on that list in the yardage list, in the catches lists, and all that stuff, it's Julian Edelman. So take that with the sour grapes and the sources he's got from the Bengals locker room with you. I think if they try to do the bump and run stuff with Kelce that we've seen in the past, Kurt Warner did a really good breakdown of how they do that in drop 8, where it's a 3-man pressure, but they're sending one of the 8 late once Mahomes breaks the pocket as a basically delayed blitz rush and rotating coverages behind it. When you do that and put that on film routinely and let Travis and Patrick have time to break that down, which I'm sure has been the focus for them for a while now when it comes to Cincinnati after that Week 10 game, they're going to have something for it. And Travis, the way that he operates and runs routes, it's not Andy schemes up stuff, but he's got 15 options each play. So it is what it is. Travis is going to, if he is just normal Travis, consistent, basic Travis, and doesn't even have a monster game, win this game.
Well,
because
and
he is
again, all that
one of the
attention.
main pieces who struggled last year in the second half of the AFC title game, and Tyreek was the other. They both had drops. They both had problems in the AFC Championship game last year. Travis knows that. He talked pretty much about it on the podcast on New Heights in roundabout fashions. They're aware of what's on the table, and he's the main one who knows most. He wants to change the outcome. So, and a lot of the offense is determined by him. It'll be, like I said, I don't know how much bracket they're gonna do as far as like straight bracket, as far as the double, like you would see as a man, but the chip zone brackets and the chip to man, or the man disguise brackets where it's not actually a bracket, it's zone, it's him doubled and everybody else in zone, things like that. How he reacts to that and reads that, and how that receiver core who is still learning all that stuff in weeks 10 and 11, and yes, that sounds crazy, we're in week 10 and 11, they're still developing those things because it's some of these guys' first years in the system. We're there now. So, and you saw it the last few weeks with the way the offense has kind of functioned when Patrick's been full bore, or when Chad Henne was in the game even. They're functioning on a different level than they were. So
They are very. That is very valid. So
Tom,
that kind of wraps up.
Well, almost. Tom wanted to share one little thing, and then we'll do the two little pieces. Give us that historical context for Mahomes and co. this weekend, because this stuff is important for his legacy, long-term stuff, and we have to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, so this is a interesting scenario for Pat because just overall, the season context, we haven't seen an MVP winner, and it's pretty much a given that he's going to be that guy this year. We haven't seen an MVP winner also win the Super Bowl in the same year since Kurt Warner in 2000. You have him on a bad ankle. We've talked about all year about Tyreek moving on. You're going against a team that is 3-0 in the last year. We've heard that they're talking about Burrowhead and all this other stuff, and they have the reason to be cocky and that kind of thing. And so there's a part of me that just, you look at all that and you go, man, statistically, historically, all that, just logically, a lot of these things are going against Pat. And I go, well, those are the exact kind of scenarios that this is a guy who drug a franchise that hadn't, seen a Super Bowl in 50 years too. And I mean, in some ways, see the Titans
drug is
game.
Accurate. We'll take drug in some of those scenarios. Yeah. Drug.
Yeah.
Houston.
See
drug.
that. Yeah. So there's a chance, and again, I acknowledge that the Bengals have been somewhat the kryptonite for the Chiefs here, but there's a chance we could have a really special performance from Mahomes down the stretch here.
I agree.
And
I think this one could be a special one
in
for
regard
sure.
to what Tom said about, and this will be basically the extent of us covering the trash talk, unless Garrett wants to really get into it. But the trash talk has been a whole bunch said by one team and nothing said by the other. And I mean that when I say nothing, he literally said nothing. Stop reaching.
Yeah. The Bengals, on the other hand, said a lot of things, and they have been saying a lot of things. So we'll have to see how that works out for them.
Mr. Mixon, Burrowhead, Mr. Mike.
Well,
Eli Apple is still out there Twitter fingering up
Eli
things
Apple
into the wind.
Is the worst. I cannot wait to see him get cooked. The one funny thing I thought about is Joe Mixon did say that they were the top dogs, but then Joe Burrow said he was like, yeah, the Chiefs actually are still the top dogs. It's like, well, which one is it, guys? But that kind of wraps up the offense.
We want to be the underdogs, but we want to be the big boys, but we want to be the underdogs.
Where do you draw that line? Where do you want to be?
I guess that makes sense. They were just happy with getting to the Super Bowl last year. That's what their whole fan base told me.
Yeah. So, talking about that Bengals offense, obviously that's going to be a big determining factor for this game. Obviously, we just saw the Chiefs defense have a great performance, and they've had a great streak here the past couple weeks. Biggest talk kind of the game, I think, would be the protection for Joe Burrow, because that's kind of the thing with Joe Burrow. If you get some pressure on him, if you get him antsy in the pocket, he starts to break down. And the Bengals offensive line this year has been actually better than what it was last year, but they're
now
also
they're banged up.
Yeah, I'm about to say they're dealing with a couple key injuries now.
let's do this now because this is the best part for the spot for the injury report because this is the part that matters the most to the injury report.
Yeah.
It just highlighted for you guys perfectly what's going on with the Bengals. The Bengals offensive line has been better than they were last year because they went out and got some guys on the offensive line to be better than they were last year. Unfortunately, all 5 of them have been hurt at some point, I think, over the last 5 weeks, and only 3 of them at max are going to be playing on Sunday. So, with that said, they're going to be missing Alex Kappa, who's their guard. He's got an ankle, DNP, and that's, I believe they've already ruled him out, essentially. He's not full ruled out as far as the real injury report, but I don't think there's any way he could even play based on what the injury was, based on what everybody was saying last week. That's the same conversation for one of their tackles, Jonah Williams. He is also basically out for this week. That leaves them with a backup tackle and a backup guard, and I think they play the same side. I'd have to double check, but I think they're on the same side of the line. That can be a problem for them if the Chiefs and Spagnuolo and Khalid continue to do what they've done with this defensive line as they've progressed throughout this season, because they've basically been lining up their best matchups on the biggest weaknesses, and it's been working really well. Oh, and Chris Jones is a problem.
Oh, and Chris Jones, right? I mean, we talked about how the D line has been popping off, especially
if you have a backup guard that's replacement level that's assigned to block Chris Jones, and they somehow get that poor man left one-on-one when they scheme it up that way.
It's inevitably gonna,
it's gonna happen. Dear Lord, I feel bad for that poor soul. Burrow gets the ball out in the fastest, one of the fastest in the league, 2.2 seconds or something like that. But if you get a backup guard on Chris Jones and he gets a decent rush off the ball, it may not take a second for him to get to Joe Burrow. He may take the snap.
It's real simple. I saw a stat this week. In games where Joe Burrow is sacked 5 or more times, his win-loss percentage really shifts. So 5 sacks is a big task for any defense, but I'd circle that. That's the golden number. Scout agrees with this take. Also, please, for the love of God, if you get your hands on Joe Burrow, put him in the dirt. If I see a Kansas City Chief defender, let that little tiny, skinny white kid from Ohio escape their grasp one more time, I'm going to break something.
Yeah, I don't know if Garrett or him have more muscle mass, but it's fine. We're good. No, I'm just kidding, Garrett. I'm just messing with you. I'm a skinny dude too. I have no room to talk. You have to hit him. And I get the 15 yards. If you sack him 7 times and they call you a 15-yard penalty one time, I will take that trade every single day.
Yeah, the biggest thing is just getting him uncomfortable.
Even if you only sack him 4 or 5 times and they give you one 15-yarder because you threw him in the dirt right after he let it go, or you landed on him a little bit when you did. Okay, you got one, but we got the majority that we needed. And guess what? As Tom said, the whole offense for them predicated on him getting the ball out on time and staying clean. He can move, but mostly only after somebody doesn't take him to the ground and there's a giant gaping hole for him to run out.
Giant gaping hole is the biggest thing, yeah. Obviously, their whole offense is pretty dynamic. You have Joe Mixon. You have Samaje Perine, who we were very familiar with last meeting because he just diced us up through the middle. That's going to be a big topic to look at, the linebackers and how they perform, especially in that middle of the field, filling those gaps. The run game.
Those are huge. You cannot let Joe sit there and be comfortable.
No. Yeah, you cannot. And I think really the biggest matchup that we're going to see on the day, Jamar Chase versus fill in the blank.
I think it's going to be L'Jarius Sneed, and he's going to get moved around to him, Garrett. After we talked about last time, Spags bringing up that L'Jarius has basically earned if we need to move a guy around to play man-to-man heads-up with a guy, with their best guy, it's him.
Yeah.
Well, here's your game.
There you go. Here we go.
If my memory is correct, they started that in the Bengals game because I think McDuffie was struggling with Chase, and that's just a size thing. Chase is one of those guys he's probably one of the best high pointers, at the catch point in the NFL.
Yeah, catch radius.
Yeah, and so, I think it's up
it.
for it. I think you still need to, shade some help over there. Chase is a special talent at receiver. We gotta just play him smart.
He catches passes
then,
even in good coverage.
Yeah, and then just let everybody else man up as they need to or play smart. But yeah, Chase is a problem. But it's not like they don't have Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins are also really good receivers, and they've got some size there too. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. But that's the one to watch, and I hope that they do let Snead follow him around.
I hope so as well. Yeah.
The interesting thing with the Chase Snead matchup, when you talked about McDuffie struggling with him, that's why when we talked Bengals pregame, the Week 10 game, I mentioned Joshua Williams being on him because of the size and physical ability. Now, the development, not quite there. Probably to be able to hang one-on-one with him consistently, but to be able to do it a couple times a game, if he's asked to and needs to hold up, he should be able to do that from a size perspective. But yeah, L'Jarius from a technical perspective, corner ball skills, playing the player, needing the technique to deal with Chase. He's the guy I would sign up for on that the most.
Yeah.
That matchup is giant. I think if you can affect his routes off the line, you may be able, because like we talked about, the key is making Burrow get hit, which means you need to make him hold onto the ball a little bit longer than his average 2.2, because I think most pass rushes it's like 2.5 seconds to get there. It's considered good pass rushing for the most part. So it's something you have to take care of, and I think if they handle Chase with some press sometimes when they need it, and then put your best guy on him. Give him his respect. He's earned it. He's early in the league, but so was Justin Jefferson, and he's earned his too.
This is not the game to be testing guys out. We did the testing in the regular season game. It's like, okay, let's put the two stars on each other. That's I can think the good game plan there. So
the last thing is for Garrett to talk about, because this is what he's wanted to bring up earlier. Middle of the defense: Willie Gay, Leo, Brian Cook. Yes, I said
that
Brian
is a huge.
Cook because Brian Cook's been
down
there.
He's actually he's one of the bigger factors, Brian Cook, and how this game will probably be a little bit different than the first matchup this year, because the linebackers, Willie Gay, Nick Bolton, they've been having a good year, but obviously we saw in the first matchup they kind of got they kind of got targeted. That's the kind of the thing. They got picked apart. They got abused. Brian Cook really wasn't much of a factor then.
They got.
They did got. But I think it's going to be a little bit of a different look now. I think obviously the D-line is going to be the first and foremost factor. They've been stepping up, and then just letting those linebackers fill the holes, shoot the gaps. The biggest thing is just how schematically they kind of adjust to the things that Cincinnati was doing. We saw a lot of different looks in that first matchup that kind of threw the defense off. And the two linebackers, obviously Gay, Bolton, they're athletically great, all that stuff, but just still not as experienced as some guys you might want back there. So it's just one of those things. You kind of have to roll with the punches and hope that you can kind of scheme around them a little bit better and kind of take some of that pressure off of them, just kind of having to take all the responsibility of stopping that run game. Get Brian Cook integrated, get the DBs integrated, get some blitzes in there. It needs to be more of a team effort than kind of just letting Bolton and Gay have the majority of the responsibility, and then them kind of not exactly living up to that.
Yep, that about covers that.
All right.
They've got to tackle.
Nailed it.
They have to tackle.
They have to tackle. That was a big thing in that first matchup. They just have to. You have to tackle these guys. They are
to death,
a tough bunch. They have a lot of
yards after contact and yards after catch. They got murdered in both of those categories in the first game.
Yeah, you can't. We gotta just. And that, I think
you gotta at least stop one of them. You can't get. You can't lose in both of those categories.
When you're in a big game like that and you've hyped it up so much and you just want to hit somebody and you let go of your fundamentals, and so it's kind of a young player problem sometimes, where it's you really do you just get overexcited and you don't stick those tackles. You don't stay assignment sound. So hopefully they've been able to watch that tape and because they can't repeat that because that killed them the last game.
No, you cannot. So that about kind of covers all the topics that we were looking for in this game. Last but not least, of course, we've got score predictions here, boys. I guess I'll start us off here. I think I'm usually the last one, but I'm going to start us off first and foremost. I'm going to say a solid 34-31 Chiefs win the game here. I think obviously Joe Burrow and them are going to get theirs. Really 31, really this might be a high scoring, a generously high scoring game for both teams. In my prediction here, really you could probably knock off 10 points from both teams and still be pretty realistic, but could just turn into a late game kind of shootout where both teams, similar to the Josh Allen divisional round, last year, where it's just final 2 minutes of that game, you're just throwing and you're taking your best plays out of the book and exactly you're just shooting, like you're just trying to get your last possession in. Exactly. So it just might come down to it being a little bit of a shootout at the end. Overall, I think the Chiefs play pretty sound and stick to their guns of what we saw in the Jacksonville game. Really, that performance in Jacksonville should be able to get it done versus the Bengals, especially if you factor in a more healthy Mahomes you have for a little longer. So yeah, we'll go with 34-31. Kyle?
All right, this game comes down to, have they cleaned up the mistakes they've made the last couple of times they played them? Turnovers, silly things, forcing things. Have they made those adjustments? And the other thing is, can this offensive line and this offense protect and do what they need to do? Because if they protect Patrick and run the ball, the defense needs to do some things, but if they do those two things as they need to, the defense should run just fine on this weekend. We've seen them run just fine for halves, and then they go in mistake mode. If they eliminate the mistakes and do the basic things that they've done in the halves that we've watched them play really well against this team, they will do no problems taking care of this team. I really, really think this game's going to come down to the big plays. I think Garrett's probably closer than he thinks he is on the score. I'm going to go 33-28 Chiefs, just because it's going to get a little wacky and wild at the end. There's going to be plays that are made by both sides because there's playmakers on both sides of the ball for both teams. We didn't really dive too deep into the Bengals defense, but they've got some dudes over there that can play. Some of them talk a little more than their talent level, but most of them are pretty solid individuals. So that's where I'm at with this. It's going to be a close game. This line has gone back and forth since it opened. I don't know if anybody really knows what to expect from this game.
No idea.
Over under is a mess. The lines moved 5 points in each direction.
Yeah, it's a messy gambling one right here.
Should be interesting.
Tom, what do you got for us?
I'm going to leave on maybe a positive note.
Let's go.
I think we are going to see the most complete game we've seen from this team all year. I think that it's going to be I think they're motivated. They're and it's a quiet motivation. And that's a scary thing, and so it's kind of like, there's people who talk and then some people it's their game or whatever, but this is a very quiet business. I think you're looking at a pretty firm, I think, just my gut feeling, I could be way wrong, wouldn't be the first time. I think you're looking at a team that's going to the Chiefs are just going to put the pedal to the floor and they're going to stay in control the whole game. I'm going to go 38-25 Kansas City.
Okay. I don't know how people get to 25.
State
I'm not
mint.
Sure.
I think they're going to go
21. 2-point conversion.
Yeah, 2-point conversion.
Sure. I like it, Tom. I love the
Well,
thought.
there's some
honestly.
ways to get to 25 that don't involve that many touchdowns too. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking there's going to be that
16 and 9 is 25, bud.
Yeah. So, Well,
16
that's
and
my
9. How
my
many field goals
guess.
are they kicking? Oh my
I
god.
can
3 and
a lot. It's a lot of them.
two-point conversions
Number
in a
one.
dog in a fun game.
Yeah, number one.
They
Fred
wouldn't
Hey, I'm
be
here
putting up a
for it.
lot of
starting
offense
I'm
if
here
we're
for
having
it. I
38, would they?
I don't have to understand it. Listen, I don't have to understand it. I just want to.
That's true.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
That's true.
So thank you all so much for rocking with us. Go ahead, Kyle. You have any closing remarks here?
Yeah, for Tom, because he capped it perfectly
Oh.
with the motivation and trash talk stuff.
About to say he
Patrick
did.
goes out and does this right, and they go out and do the 38-25 on one ankle and handle all that business with that. And what Tom was talking about earlier with the historical context, you should go watch the Rich Eisen clip about why they talk about the guy the way they do. That will explain some things, especially if he pulls off what that would be on Sunday.
Yes, definitely go watch that Rich Eisen clip. Wow, that's kind of a tongue twister there. But yeah, should be a good game this weekend. Chiefs Kingdom. Be sure to tune in. Obviously, I'm sure all of Kansas City and all of Chiefs Kingdom will be watching this game. Biggest game of the year by far. Thank you all so much for listening and watching this one. If you're listening and you want to watch, you can watch us on YouTube, Kingdom Says Podcast. And if you're watching us and want to just listen, you can find us on all podcast platforms. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Kingdom Says Pod. Follow our personal Twitters at Garrett720, at KThen16, and at ArrowheadTom. And we will be back with you guys next week for a very action-packed week, hopefully. Hopefully it should be a pretty good week. And we got a lot of off-season content in the pipe ready to go as well. We should see some other cool stuff from a guy named Arrowhead Tom on the bottom here. We got tons of draft content loaded and waiting, so be on the lookout for that. But most importantly, enjoy Sunday and enjoy the fact that we only have 3 more NFL games left in the season.
As Juju explained in his press conference, one day at a time. Let's get to Sunday.
Yes,
one day at a time.
One day at a time. Thank you all so much for listening and watching once again. We will see you guys next week.